Awesome. Hey, Montana, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. Really looking forward to connecting and chatting. It's so good to see you again.
Likewise.
So let's jump right in. If you can remember, I know it's been a couple of months for us, but if you can think back to life and career, like your life and your work before you're laughing, before you joined Find Your Fulfilling Career, talk to us about what life and your career was like before the program.
Well, I've been in education. I mean, I just finished at the end of the school year 17 years. So I've been in education for 17 years. I have multiple degrees in education, and I've just been feeling like kind of adrift. Like I've tried, people say it's just like finding a different district, a different type of school, a different age group, and I've kind of done all of that. And
Mhm,
still it's not really like meeting the needs that I have in a career in general. Like
mhm,
education's not meeting those needs. And so I was just kind of looking for something that also provided more flexibility in my life. I currently have a pretty long commute of almost an hour each way. And that would be fine if my schedule was also maybe a little bit more flexible, if maybe I had some other opportunities to spend time with my family. But
all
I
right.
leave before my children are up, I get home late at work. It's kind of like I feel like either I'm doing the most or I'm not really getting anything out of my day.
Mm,
And it didn't feel like that was changing no matter what school I've been in. So it's not really
mm,
specific to any specific school. It's just kind of what I see like the trends in the field. And so I just needed to find something different. I just had no idea where to go, like
mhm.
which direction to go, how to start the process. Like I know other people have done that, but I don't also have a lot of time, right? I don't have time to do all this research and figure out all of these details while doing all the other stuff in my life, which keep me quite busy.
Well, thanks for sharing. So I heard a few things there, right? You had been on this path in education for about 17 years, or 17 years this year,
Yeah.
and you had been feeling dissatisfied. So you had tried to like switch jobs internally, you had tried districts, you had tried expanding your role, but none of that was filling this need that you were craving just to do something different, something more engaging. But also, it sounds like just when you think of your life structure, the work you were doing was not allowing you to be there with your family and giving you the flexibility you wanted. And so you wanted to do something else, even though you had the degree, you had the time, you're like, you didn't know where to take all that information, but also you didn't
Exactly.
want to waste time trying to figure out where to take all that information.
Yeah. And also like capacity. At the end of the day, I'm pretty tired, right? So
Mm-hmm,
realistically, any energy I have is to connect with my family
mm-hmm.
and rest, just to rest
Yeah.
so I can make it to work the next day. And I think it was like it's this extreme exhaustion at
Mm-hmm.
the end of each day. And so any a little bit of energy I had, I wasn't realistically putting into that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing. I think that's a common theme that I've heard with women where when you're doing work that's not aligned, it drains you so much that it almost feels like you don't have the energy for the rest of your life. And then
Mhm.
for someone like you, who you were like, I'm trying to figure out what else I would be doing, it's like, I barely have energy for life, not to mention energy to figure out what I'm going to do next.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, how did all of that bring you to FYFC, Find Your Fulfilling Career?
Well, so I started doing some research on career consultants. And for me, it was actually really important to have someone who also understood the perspective of being a woman of color. So I kind of finally landed on your program after looking at some other programs. And I felt like your approach and your framework, I'm very partial to frameworks and having like kind of clear to-do lists. I think that's the teacher in me that's made me successful in the education career. But like I need things broken down in chunks, and then I can pretty much go on my own, but I need like a clear framework for to
Mm-hmm.
like jump off from. And FYFC like kind of provided that for me, and
Mm-hmm.
so I decided that the commitment, both time wise and financially, was an investment in myself, which I think often also as women, we don't necessarily do that, and especially as
Mm-hmm.
and women who are mothers as well, like another layer on top of that. And like in careers, we give so much of ourselves to our home life, to our families, to our jobs, but very
Yeah.
rarely do we invest in ourselves. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for my own sanity and my own day-to-day fulfillment, and then therefore to what I bring to the rest of the world and the relationships that I'm a part of, I needed to have that time for myself.
Oh my gosh, so much to unpack there. Thanks for sharing. I think the first piece, because you know, yeah, I mean, because I heard you say, let me actually say what I heard, and then we'll go. Because I heard you talk about liking the framework, right? And so FYFC had this framework, and you know, I'm a teacher too, so we need
I
those
love it.
frameworks, girl. We need those frameworks. But then I heard you talk about the time and financial investment in yourself and what it's like to invest as a woman, as a mother, as a woman of color, and to invest in your career, where usually maybe your career is not a space that people are often pouring into, but you are often pouring out of. So let's start with the framework piece, because I'm wondering, when you talked earlier about, you know, not having that energetic capacity, did having that framework sort of address or impact the desire to not expend too much energy to figuring out this process?
Yeah, well, it gave me like clear steps, because I think that that's one
Mhm.
of the things. It's like you can kind of, I think conceptually we kind of all understand the general idea of what you need to get to a new job, right, or a new
Mhm.
career. Like we all kind of intellectually have some understanding of that. What does that
Mhm.
look like in chunks, in little steps, in pieces, and in what order do you do them, right? Like, because I
Mhm.
could start with one thing but really find out halfway through it that, oh, I should have actually started with this other process, and then you go back, and it ends again. That's that time piece of figuring things
Right.
out. So it just didn't it addressed the energy piece in the sense that, like, I just didn't have to think too much about what was A, B, C, D, whatever. It was
Mhm.
more of, okay, this is A, let's focus the time and energy, follow the steps through, and get that information, and then move to B, and then be like, oh wait, this is where this connects to the previous section. So you
Mhm.
could go back and make those connections, but without having to like abruptly stop in the middle. Or
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think it just had like a natural flow to it, that made
Mhm.
it less energy intensive, in the sense of like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm super
Right.
overwhelmed. It
Right.
really just gave me a step by step, which allowed me to focus my energy on what I really wanted to know, which is what are my skills? What did I really value? What did I want to go into? Um,
Mhm.
what made sense for what I really wanted, and
Mhm.
what actually isn't working for me at work. Because I think that's the other thing, is like we have often these feelings of dissatisfaction at work, but we don't necessarily know what it really is that's
Mhm.
dissatisfying. And I
Mhm.
think if I think that's one of the wonderful parts of the program, was really identifying what's actually the
Mhm.
struggle, so that you're not
Mhm.
making the same mistake in the next step of the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And then just if you could quickly talk us through,
Mhm.
because I heard you mention, right, you taking, being intentional about making this time, energy, and financial investment in
Mhm.
yourself. What was the conversation with yourself like to get to the point of, you know what, yes, I'm going to make this investment?
Well, I'm a doer. So I'm a thinker and a doer, like kind of like a half and
Hybrid.
half. Like, yeah, like I'll spend a lot of time kind of thinking about something, observing stuff, like processing it. I might complain about it a bunch. But then at a certain point, I'm just like, something has to change. Like, I can't
Mm,
sit here looking at this, thinking about it, maybe complaining about it, and not
mhm,
changing the scenario.
mhm,
Right. Which is
mhm,
why I've changed jobs. I changed types of school. I changed age groups, was because of all of that, really.
mhm,
Um, and so that's the point that I had finally reached. It's been like a few years. The current position that I'm in was really about, like, would have been the dream job if that was
mm,
really what I wanted to be doing. And so I've reached this point of like, I'm 5 years into this particular position. This would be the dream job. I'm progressing in terms of this community. I'm getting leadership positions, and it's still the same
mm,
feeling. And then I was
mm,
like, something has to change, and I need help
mhm,
to do it.
mhm,
And I think that's that other piece, is that often, perhaps as women of color as well, we don't necessarily ask for help. And I just realized this point of like, as much as I love my family and I love my colleagues, and I didn't really have anybody who understood this process. Um, and so I just needed help.
mhm, mhm. Wow, thanks for sharing. Okay, so let's talk about your time in FY. So you know, you talked a bit about how it helped you really get clear on what exactly you were unhappy with at work.
Mhm.
What else would you say were some of like your wins or aha moments or favorite parts of the program? What did you learn from going through FYFC?
Well, I think the most clarifying aspect was what to go forward in and what did I really want at a career. And I think for me, it was like kind of a big picture life thing. Do what emphasis do I want to put on my career in the sense of,
Mm-hmm.
do I want it to be the things that I love to do on the weekends? Like, I'm very outdoorsy. Like, do I want my job to be that all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Or realistically, do I want a job that maximizes things, skills that I enjoy about myself, that I actually enjoy about my job, that are not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like my everyday fun interests, and more of a focus on giving me the ability, like scheduling wise, financially, to have the time to focus on my interests and the fun and my
Mm-hmm.
creativity outside of
Mm-hmm.
work. Um, and so that's kind of what I landed on was, realizing that I'm in the sciences and that I would love to continue in sciences to an extent, but the amount of education, extra education that I would have to do didn't make sense since I already have a
Mm-hmm.
terminal degree. I didn't want another degree. And so, and realistically, the financial gains wouldn't be there. Like, I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
making enough money to make the extra education worth it.
Worth it.
Um, so that research piece actually was super helpful because, like, initially when that, like, a couple of those jobs popped up in the interest survey, I was like, yeah, that's awesome. But then once you do enough research, you have to sit back, I think, and realize, like, what realistically are you going to be happy with? Like, I could go out and do that job, but like
Mm-hmm.
in a month, am I going to be annoyed because I'm not financial, I have to go back to school, I have to do all these
Mm-hmm.
things. And then am I still in the same spot where then I'm not going to have time with my family? I'm not going to have time for
Mm-hmm.
vacation, all of those pieces that were already issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I landed on a job that I think actually taps into a lot of my skills and skills that I enjoy doing at my job, but don't necessarily do as much as um, and in a way that I would enjoy at
Mm-hmm.
my current position. And kind of
Mm-hmm.
streamlining that focus is to, like, okay, so what do I already do that matches up with that field? And then
Mm-hmm.
how can I move forward
Mm-hmm.
and close any skills gaps that I might have?
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like for you, I'm hearing like kind of like the best part of the coming out of this for you was the clarity in figuring out what your next move is going to be, and knowing that that move is actually going to be aligned with the skills you enjoy using,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that you had done enough research to eliminate other options so you feel some sense of confidence in going in this direction.
Yeah, I feel really confident about the direction I'm going, actually, and very clear. And as I continue to do the work post the program, like,
Mm-hmm.
it makes it even more clear, like using like the career development plan and all of that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's making it more and more clear as each day passes. And yeah, it feels really good. It makes it like, it's
Awesome.
also super motivating. It's energizing. I don't feel like like I'm dreading.
Right.
It feels really good.
Oh, I love to hear that. And so I heard one thing you said was, there were some things you were considering, which, and I know this because we had these conversations, but for the listener, right? But you were like, okay, the education is not going to make sense. And I heard you say that's where the research came in, and the research that we go through in the program was really helpful for you. And so I'm curious, as you were doing that research, are there things, or what did you learn in the program that helped you do your research? Like, it helped you eliminate options or say yes or say no to certain things? Because I find that that's where women often struggle. It's, will I like this? Will I not? How did the program help you answer those types of questions?
Well, I think that there's like the idea of like values, interests, alignment, and I think also taking a moment, as I think the conversations that we have with our cohort were actually
Mm,
where this would come out more, the like kind
mm,
of emotional component, that psychological component of like, where does my life fit into that? Because it's
mhm,
one thing to talk about like my career and like the like logistics of it, but like also emotionally and psychologically, how do these values, interests, and my life all connect together?
mhm,
And I think that's where the research and the program piece came in together. So kind of researching of like, yeah, these were my interests, but how does that align with the values that I've
mhm,
found in the program? And then, okay, now let's talk this out. How does that actually fit in with the life that I really want to live? Like, how do I want
mhm,
to live every day? And I think having that kind of picture of like what I want each day to look like, what do I want a week to look like, what do I want the next few years to look like? I think that all kind of came together in that sense.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So last question for the woman who's listening or watching,
Yeah.
and she's trying to decide if she should make that financial and time and energetic investment in FYFC. What would you say to her?
I would say that it's worth the time and effort. I think if you're finding yourself in the position where you hate going to work every day, you kind of, I think if you've made the changes a couple times of like, again, like I said, I did, change a different career like level in your field, or you've gone to a different company or a different location, you're still feeling the same, that it's time to make a change. It's not going to get any better. And you don't want to wake up 10 years because time is both slow and fast. And it's like it feels really slow when you're at work and you're dreading it. But then you blink one day and it's 10 years later and you're still in this career, and that negativity doesn't do anything for you as an individual and for you in your career. And it's worth it. I don't know, it's like, for me, it's worth it. I know that like the career I'm moving towards, even like financially, like with the skills that you've taught us, with the confidence it builds, I think I'm also like going to be much more comfortable negotiating salary, like making sure that I'm getting a higher salary for the work that I'm going to do. I'm valuing myself more, and it gives me that sense of like, oh, you are awesome, and you have to sell yourself. And I think that that's actually really, again, more things that women in society aren't taught, and it's not, we learn much later in our lives, that like you have value, you do awesome things at your job, you do awesome things in your everyday life. You need to learn to sell yourself and be like, look, I'm bringing value to your company. This is what it's worth. And so I think that financial piece at first is scary because you're like, there's no way I can, that's too much. Like I can't do that. But when you realize like, wait a minute, like I'm going to improve my career, I'm going to feel more confident, and I'm going to be able to negotiate a salary where it's a no-brainer. I don't know. I think I feel so much better about where I'm going and how I'm getting there. And it also sets me up for like 10 years from now, if I want to make another change, like, again, I have that framework, I have a step-by-step process to do that.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, when you said, helped you realize you're awesome, I wanted to interrupt, like, that's because you are awesome. So yay.
Thank you.
It's just amazing to hear you talk about, it's so many shifts, right? Like the shift in how you see yourself, the shift in getting rid of that energetic expenditure where you were like, I'm too drained to know what to do next. But now it's like, I know what I'm doing next. I'm moving towards it. I have a framework to follow. And then in 10 years, if I need to do this change again, I still have a framework to follow, and I can keep using that to sell myself and position my value and find alignment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's totally worth it. And it's a wonderful program. Awesome. I'm really grateful for having done it.
Yay. And I was grateful to work with you, to be honest. I just love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Montana. It was such a pleasure speaking with you today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
If you're tired of feeling stuck, unhappy, and unfulfilled in a career that feels like it's sucking the life out of you, but you're not sure how to make your transition or what you would do next, I invite you to apply to find your fulfilling career. FYFC is an exclusive, intimate group coaching program for the woman who is unhappy at work and ready to find a career that allows her to live on purpose and thrive in her zone of genius. If that sounds like you, visit findyourfulfillingcareer.com to submit your application today.